All right. And we are live. Hello, everybody. Hi. Welcome to
Hi.
Day of Energy Transformation Week. Woohoo! My name is Tara Taglienti, and I put this together just to create a really cool. I put this together of a panel of amazing facilitators, healers, change agents that are out there that are in my world and that are inspiring me. And, I love hearing their transformation stories and if I, and like, like why they do what they do and what lights them up. And also it's very important to me that, you know, people get that everybody on this panel is very successful and has great outcomes to their stories. And it's like, you know, I'd like to create a source of information and where people can find resources, because the path to getting there, sometimes it does involve a lot of different spaces to go through. And I'm creating this just to provide those kinds of resources and some information and inspiration for those of you who may be on the other side of that path still, or just beginning that path. So I put this together, and you know, I just would love. I cannot wait. My next interview, my friend, and I mean the lovely Christy is an access conscious. And every time I talk to her, every time I hang out with her, I learn something totally learned before. And I just think that, Kristina, you are just so, you have such an interest. You're so,
They're gonna
um,
make me cry.
oh, yeah. And I just love hearing I like talking to you. So, without further ado, I'm going to let you go ahead, Eddie, who you are, what you do, and let's take it in from there. I think you're going to have such a different spin on this, on transfer, just from hearing your story. Go ahead. I'm going
Sure.
to.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to this conversation, because I think it's great what you're doing, because these tools and processes have changed so many lives across the world that when I first came around them, I almost got a little angry. I don't know about you, but I was like, wow, where the heck were these when I was a kid? And it's not like I didn't have a whole bunch of other modalities in my pockets, because I kind of was free to explore all that kind of stuff when I was younger, and I certainly did. But what can happen is, much in the way, you can get lost in the forest of spirituality. And that's kind of what happened to me, because I was jumping from thing to thing to thing, and certification to certification to certification, and doing all these different things. And at some point had to stop and look at it and say, what's really changing here? What have I accomplished? And it I just literally stopped everything. And I stopped reading all the self-help books, taking the classes, taking the courses, and just be. And I did it for about a year. And then slowly I started to look at things again from a different perspective. And I'll never forget, because I was driving in the car and I was listening to some audio from some awesome speaker. I was some guru. And he said the words, well, it's not coming to me at the moment. Sorry about that. Something about, you're in this world, but you're not of it. And it stuck with me. And I'm like, what does that mean? And it just always thought about it. Like, you're in this world, but you're not of it. And so I'd always think about it, and like, what does that mean? I have one foot in and one foot out. Like, I'd have all these questions, and I'd forget about it. And years rolled by, and it was, every once in a while I'd still think about that. And it was in one of my early access classes that I kind of put it together. It kind of just clicked. because one of the things we talk about in Access is this reality and how it's manipulating you, and it's not, almost none of it is really real. And we start to look at the ways, we kind of get to flip the switch and start to say, okay, now that I know that, how am I going to use this reality to create my own reality, instead of me being manipulated and taken advantage of in some ways, if you really think about it, because how we let all the trauma and drama and thoughts, feelings of emotions of everyone around us take over. It's no wonder people have nervous breakdowns or they want to numb themselves with alcohol, drugs, food. You know, there's always something to turn to, and all of that is an attempt to turn it off, because all this is coming at them. So for the first time someone said to me, you can use all this information to your advantage. You don't have to be a victim of it. And you know, a lot of people who are in this work were told that we're sensitive. I don't know if, as a kid, if you were told you were sensitive, and we're had wrong for it. Sure.
Hey, throw that in. I actually have friends of mine who used to be like, "Oh my God, you're so sensitive," like, and it would be like, and then I thought to myself, well, I kind of liked my sensitivity, you know. I thought, like, you know, obviously I was like, well, but I feel things, you know, and it's like, they don't. It's like, do you guys not feel? And the ones that would get mad at me for being sensitive, I was just like, oh, like I kind of, I mean, it's definitely, I sense things that I do. I tend to cry a lot, you know what I mean? not out of sadness, but it's something happens. It's like if I'm around someone that just lights me up and we have a great connection, I'm one of those, I tend to kind of, but yeah, one of my friends have told me, I used to get very, wow. And then I started to think there's something wrong. I was more sensitive than most of the people. Go ahead. I'm just throwing that out there.
No, it's great. Now, you know, as a facilitator, when I have people in classes, and never mind classes, just when you're a facilitator, you're facilitating all the time. And when people show up, you know, with that I'm too sensitive, or I feel too much, or I can't handle it, I might check into the reality to see if they can hear this, and I'll say, well, what if that sensitivity was really awareness? And so all of a sudden, all those things that you had to get upset about or worried about or amped up about or really had emotional about could all of a sudden become information, and then you can choose how to respond to that. And for me, that was just world changing, because I was at the, I don't want to say victim, but the effect of all of that going on around me. So that was the first, like, whoa, I am in the right place. Because I had done so much other types of work, but they never really, they'd always touch it and bring you in certain pieces of it, but they never put it together for me. The way that the tools of Access Consciousness did. And so it's really empowering. And had and you know, I went through that space very early on where I just got really angry, because I looked back and said, oh, wow. Like, you're watching the parts of your life in the past as a movie, and you're going, wow, if I had had the tools, I would have said this, or I would have not let that happen, you know, affect me, or how I would have been able to change everything. And what's really kind of cool is that you can still do that. You can actually go back to the past, look at it as it happened, and then do the tools, and you can uncreate and unchange all of that, and then get to move forward. So it's like, you're an infinite being, so you can go forward, you can go backwards, you get to go wherever you need to go and change whatever you need to change. And that sounds a little bit but it makes sense actually.
Hey, listen, and it's like they give you a tool and you share a tool, right? And it's like use them, and it's not like, but talking about being able to go back to clear some of the, and you know, with Danielle Carter when we went off camera, there's a she using the clear and you know, where people may have told her about herself and then she like means something about herself and her body, and then she's been able to clear away those kinds of ideas and implants. And having that, and so like just as an example, I'm gonna throw out my own example. When I was growing up, I had over the week, and when I walked in, and that in the next day, came up to me and was like, "Oh, idea why he was with you in that car, and that he would never have been out with somebody like you." Like I created whatever about myself, whatever she said, like, you know, I created whatever I created, right?
Mm-hmm.
These tools where I can go back and clear out, and I've ever, you know, had like the Mean Girls or whatever. Mm-hmm. You know what we're talking about here.
Sure. We're having a little bit. Yeah, I got most of it. You were a little bit frozen and choppy, but I think I got the gist of that story. So I think
cool.
Hopefully I got most of it. But what I can add to that was, as a kid and moving into those teenage years, when you're having what I now know as capacities, I'm walking around in classes with students and teachers knowing what they're thinking about me, and then having to pretend that I don't know. So in a lot of situations, this did work to my advantage, and I did use it, but very unconsciously. And then other times I tried to stuff it. You know, you're not supposed, you know, and here's the kicker. I thought everybody received and thought like this. Like everybody knew that this was going on, but nobody talked about it. You weren't supposed to talk about it. But to me, I thought, well, if I can do this, everybody can do it. We just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Nobody ever.
Yeah.
If I had known, it would have been a different time in high school. I think I would have had a lot more fun, because I was always really sad and depressed, and because all I was doing was picking up on the stress of being a teenager and the anger. I did not want to go. Every day was just get me through it. It was not fun for me.
Yeah.
So
wait,
I don't know. Did that match the energy of your story? I think because it was
it actually like I get it, like in those I thought everybody thought and felt and experienced the world the same way that I did as well, and that I had the same experience. It was like you did you, and then you realize, I know for me, when Access Consciousness, it gave me a whole bunch of like tools and stuff that I was like, oh, where has this been all my, like, it would have made everything so much easier. And then, but it does start to make my past, like I had a way of being able to be really happy, and, you know, and like, I think I was just oblivious that I was so different.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, well, they're just not, like, it was really like, they're just not talking about what I know, and that's cool. I guess we all know it. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of going on is really a lot. Like I pretty much just was out, drank, like I so okay, go ahead. I'm gonna let you talk.
So it's really freezing. So I'm like really following the energy here of what you're saying. But I can say something else on the flip side of that. When I said I was kind of using the capacities unconsciously, I can't tell you how many times it saved me from bad situations. It saved my life because of just the things that young girls could get in. Like I was walking home and a creepy car was following me, and where someone else might not have the awareness to like, okay, you need to change your route. This person is not here for any good reason. Stuff. I mean, I can't tell you how many times you to look up or stop an accident, and so many times. I mean, there's just too many to name to say that stuff is coincidence. So it's so natural and so second nature that but I wasn't acknowledging that potency. It's just like, oh, it's just this thing I do. So now that I'm tapping into it with an awareness and acknowledging the potency and the capacities that I have. And the beauty of it is, as a facilitator, you get to do that for other people. So I always tell people in class, listen, the only difference between you and I is that I've had these tools a little bit longer than you. I'm not a guru. I'm not any better or any special, because, I was that person in class when I put teachers on pedestals and like, oh, I've got to be like that. I want to be like this. And never all I kept looking at is what I was missing. What do I have to learn? What do I have to know? What do I have to study so I can have this enlightenment? And as we know, enlightenment is, the pursuit of answers, and consciousness is the question. And that's where all the power lies. And once you have that, you're like, oh, you mean, but I was just running for those answers. And now it's all about the question. So, what else is possible? Oh, what would it be like to have that? Oh, it's just a totally different energy. It's like, whew. And one thing you're probably more caring and more in tune with other people, but you actually appear to them as less caring because you're not following into this society's norm of trauma and drama and going, oh, what happened, you poor thing? Because I don't do that anymore. I don't buy their story. I kind of like, barriers down. What can I be for this person? I don't just show up and be like, oh, are you okay? Like that's what we used to do. That's what we were taught to do. That was the right thing. And how much of that was locking all that stuff in for them and not changing anything. And so now, as a facilitator, having the tools to kind of really watch people's worlds unlock is just so beautiful. And it took a little bit of understanding for me, because I would take it personally when people wouldn't unlock, and you could see where exactly they're just not ready. And that's when Gary Douglas, our founder, says they get it when they get it. So now, when I unlock that attachment of having to get people to be where they came, get them to have the change they came for, now I actually had noticed that people that I'm facilitating are actually having more results, because I no longer have the attachment of I have to deliver. That was huge for me. Huge, because I had such an attachment to helping people.
And that was a little bit. That was a little.
We're frozen.
It's like it was a little choppy there. So okay, whatever does not want to be heard. If anything doesn't want any of this to be heard, let's just do 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. And guys, what that was a 1, 2, 3 contribution, and you can do that for anything. You could do that for the earth. You can do that, for your bank account. It's just you're basically just balling up a bunch of energy in your hands, and it's like whatever you're dealing with at that moment, you're contributing to it. It can just be like 1, 2, 3, and then something will change.
Yes. And all of a sudden, your voice is back and it's flowing. Nice. So that's great.
That's so cool. So, Kristina, tell me about like you personally. Like, what had you choose to? I mean, what had you choose to? The desire and that seeking. Like, what had you want, I guess, bust out and speak? Like what had you just be like, there's something. I know you explained about cool, thinking that it was just a thing that no one was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But what, it's like what was it for you that was like, no, I'm gonna choose this path?
Nothing specific. Like there was no like event that happened.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of a natural thing for me to do that. I gravitate. It's funny, and I think you hear a lot of people say things like this. I don't really like groups of people, and I really like to hang out by myself. But yet, what I find in groups of people, I'm super dynamic and very engaged, and at the same time, it's not my favorite thing to do, but yeah, I'm really natural at it. And I prefer actually group facilitation than I do one-on-one facilitation. Yeah. So I think like with a group, the energy is so much more fun and so much bigger, and I perceive bigger change, maybe, I don't know, but it's just more fun for me, where I know other facilitators prefer to do one-on-ones and they stay away from groups. So even before Access, I would shy away from groups, but yet, life finds you in groups. So when I was there, I'm like, well, I'm going to be what I am. And naturally, I would always kind of naturally become some form of leader. And this was since a little kid. So I would kind of just go in and all the information would come out like, okay, we can do this, this has to be done. And I kind of would just like, and then it would happen. And, and as a woman, you could be called bossy, those kinds of things. So then I would shrink because I was told I was too bossy or it's too much or too controlling. He took over, and I'd just be like, oh, wow, that was so easy for me. And if I didn't do it, none of it was getting done. So,
yeah.
And then, so after being told that a few times, then you kind of shrink back and like, oh, I don't want to be too big. Don't want to like make waves. I don't know if that even answered your question, but it was just sort of a natural thing. Kind of always just fell in. It's like could not choose it because it's who I be.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, you know what? I'm just asking, and then like whatever comes through comes through, and I'm not. I just kind of, okay. So, is it like some of the other things that like? Okay, so I got to visit you in Connecticut, and I've met you down here in Florida, and I've gotten to like run bars with you in Connecticut, and guys. Bars is energy work, so we both, do energy work, and sometimes you can meet up with somebody and do an energy share, which is really cool. And I think some of the cool things is like you're also like the way you live is really different. Like you always tell me about how like you grew up as like the kid with the like the mom that like had you eating like the alternative foods, and it was like what was it like that? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
That was where I really kind of looked at like, well, this is why I'm different, because
Yeah.
I remember like getting not so much kindergarten, but the first day of school. And I remember like all the little kids, and we didn't, at our particular school didn't have a cafeteria, so we ate lunch at our desk. And I remember taking out my lunchbox and taking out my food, and I had brown bread and fruit and maybe a piece of or some yogurt or something. I don't know. But then I looked at all the other kids' desks, and they had this white bread, which I had never even seen. And it was Wonder Bread, and everybody had Wonder Bread. And everybody had some kind of hostess Twinkie. And I was like, whoa, what's that? I'm like, wow, my mom didn't get the memo, because it was like they had potato chips and Twinkies and bologna and cheese. And I hadn't even seen bologna. I didn't even really know what that was. So I was like, huh. And then I was looking at the actual lunch boxes, and they were these tin, like really cool, like had all the cartoon characters on them, Superman, Wonder Woman, you know, all these. And mine was like this recyclable plastic Tupperware, you know, everything was reusable, and
Yeah.
it wasn't pretty at all. It was like just, you know, totally practical. And then, you know, I wanted the pink Holly Hobby one. I'm like, hey. So yeah, that kind of stuff went on through my whole childhood. Even every year, like the nurse would call me in and said, "Oh, you can't be here." Why? Because you haven't had your vaccinations. I was like, oh, and I'd get really scared and upset. And then in my high school years, I'd get really excited. I'm like, oh, you better send me home. Gotta go home. Bye. You know. And then of course we'd have to write and I think the state of Connecticut is still this way. We'd have to write the religious exemption form, so saying it's against your religion to have vaccinations. And I think that still stands in the state of Connecticut. But yeah, so I was always had these really different things. I was always that girl with the different thing happening. So yeah, I felt really, so that added to me feeling really different. And at the same time, I'm super grateful for it, because all of those things were so ahead of their time. My mother was a pioneer, because nobody was talking about this stuff, let alone implementing it, acting on it. And now all of that stuff is on the forefront of, and here we are 30 years later, or however long it is. And I'm actually writing a book on that. So
that's so awesome. And like, can I just tell you like certain things in my life that I would in it, you know, kind of, you know, I do the green and stuff like that, and like even the way that I talk, I'm kind of holding back as like much as I think. I'll always ask Kristina, like, how do I do this? I don't feel so like it's something that that, you know what I mean? That's just kind of how I think, is like, oh, well, I know this can be done, and I'll just, you know what I mean? So it's like, that's how I see you, is like,
yeah. And you know something about that, before the tools of access, I had probably a little bit of superiority going on with that, and and a whole lot of like judgment of other people, like I want to shake them. How do you not know? This is destroying the earth. It's destroying people's health. And I would have so much judgment around it, which the tools of access let me step back and say, okay, wow, I'm an allowance of this now. Had I written that book 5 years ago, 6 years, 7 years ago, the book's been talking to me for the last 5 years, 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
I probably would have written a totally different book, because I would have had so much charge around the things. Now I want to bring awareness and bring people to make it a choice. I still list all the reasons why, because it doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for the planet. You know, there's all these chemicals coming at us 360 degrees. It's in our food, our beauty products, our water, our air. There's nothing that the chemicals haven't infiltrated. And it's getting to the point where enough is enough. You know, 50 to 100 years ago, we did just fine, and we didn't have all these chemicals, and we're destroying the planet. So now I'm able to come from a
Mm-hmm.
space with Allowance and say, okay, so this is where they are, because there's people who aren't aware, but now I can just kind of
Yeah.
turn a little spotlight on it. And it's so funny because the title of the book, working title, was Chemical Nation, and kind of a
Yeah.
subtitle, How to blah, 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 you know, still a working title. Oh, I have a cat who's coming to visit. And it just recently changed.
Let him or her contribute. I'm totally
Easier.
see. Well, because here's the thing. Here's the thing is I this is why okay, so I remember talking to you about, I still have a lot of stuff about the different industrial things that are done industrially, especially with animals and stuff like that bother me. But I remember speaking to you, and then there's a way, you have a way of putting it, stick you. I mean, I see a lot of these as like these injustices, and I know you're moving energy right now, but it's like,
no, that stirred up a lot for me, because before Access, I was so fully affected about the, you know, what it does to animals, and had all that judgment.
I see Kitty.
Yeah, Indy. He's gonna be 16 soon. He's getting up there, but he's a nice, happy old cat. Of course he'd come, Tara. He loves all this energy. So
well, Danielle's cat was like of our enter the screen, but hey, how are you?
He's got his lovey eyes on. He's all about him right now. He just wants to be pet. But anyway, the approach now that, and I could just remember a turning point for me was one of my dear friends from high school who is a, you know, animal rights person, and we would always share these emails back and forth, and this is so terrible, can you believe this? And we get all fired up, and we share petitions and sign them, and, you know, all this crazy stuff, and we get all worked up. And she sent me this email about some man in Texas that was stringing up dogs and skinning them alive. And my initial action was, oh, you know, like just want to cry and hurt and just, why are there people on the planet, for like about 1 second. And then I stopped.
Right.
And I went right to, wow. I went to the man for the first time. And I said, what kind of pain is he in that he could actually do these kinds of acts? Like, and I went into total allowance. And my whole world started to unlock. The animals world started to unlock. I felt this man who's stranger in Texas world start to unlock. And for the first time, I could start to understand how allowance really does allow people to heal. Like, it doesn't mean I accept it. Doesn't mean that I'm okay with him doing those kind of behaviors. But when I go into the non-judgment of it, I felt a level of healing. And then I could start to see it with worn, torn areas. And, you know, a lot of times when we're in our larger scale classes and our World War classes with Gary or Dana facilitating, or people will still stand up and say, what about, like, you know, what's going on in the industry with the cows and thousands of animals going to slaughter?
Sure. Hang on 1 second. Wait, I just want to, over time, and is it okay that we go over?
We're fine. Totally fine. Totally fine. I'm with the energy.
Amazing. Okay, because this is stuff I think about a lot, and I probably should call you more often. Go ahead. But definitely.
And here's another thing. I grew up a vegetarian. My mom to this day is still a vegetarian. Now, I've chosen to eat meat. Now, I don't eat it every day, and I kind of check in with my body. Body, what do you require? And I do. It very rarely wants chicken. It very rarely wants organic grass-fed beef that I prepare myself. But those are the types of things that I choose, because that works for me. And I use it more as a like a side dish. It's not like this thing I want to have and then I have vegetables. You know, it's more like vegetables and a little side of of meat. And, you know, for a long time, my mom had judgment of me for choosing to eat meat. And now since Access, she has allowance with me being, you know, choosing to eat meat.
Yeah, so, and what were you going to say? What were you going to say about being in the large classes and what Gary or those people about the animals?
A lot of times, and it's happened more than once, where people just they're still caught up or tied up in, you know, the thousands of animals being slaughtered daily, especially in this country. And I have had that, and he's saying, he goes, the animals chose it. There's an awareness there, and that sounds kind of like, why would anybody choose that? Well, one of the women in class stood up and said that there was a holding center down the street from where she lived, and the cows would often break free and they'd end up in her yard. And one of the cows actually said to her, "Please don't send me back there. They're going to kill me." And she said, "I won't send you back there, but they're going to come for you." That really stuck with her, and she was really upset. And so she was talking to Gary about it. And Gary said something to the effect that, he goes, "Tell them next time to come back as a dog in the Western world, because if they go, you know, to be a dog in other countries where they're eaten." So he said, they'll be pampered. They'll, you know, and to choose an owner that will, you know, or, you know, he can come back as a person. So it was just like, you know, conversations like that and this reality, people are like, okay, but tapping into all the people all over the world, and there's not just thousands of us, hundreds of thousands of us who have the capacities, who know that we can talk to animals, who know that we have this information, and just acknowledging it. And when I'm out there in that reality, which, you know, I had a strong judgment of, because I was like, oh, that reality, you know. Now it's just like, what can they hear? What can they hear? So, and so if I'm in a group
I just want to say, listening in, and you're just like, what? This is all new to you, and new information, or you had people won't find this kind of information unless they're seeking and they're looking. Also say is that we're going to provide resources, and also with you, because with like I've been meaning, I needed to have this conversation with you about the animals and stuff like that. I've actually had it. I feel like you get allowance and opening that up, and when we can, the things that they're choosing enables it to as well, is that it enables them us going into any job.
That was a question. Here's what I think you said, but then you can re-ask me if I didn't. If you were asking about being in judgment of animals, and I didn't really get it. Could you try to repeat it again? Hopefully I'll catch the whole thing, because it was really frozen and choppy.
Okay, that's okay. Sounds like talking about allowance of the people who perpetrate abuse there, right? When we do allow into a charge of bad, wrong, evil kind of anger kind of thing at them, when we kind of stop and be like, okay, questions, and
the
aspect
thing,
so that
okay, I'm gonna try again. So I'm thinking that we're talking about when people get charged up, when the people who are perpetrating the abuse, whether it's in the meat industry or if it's just on a day-to-day, you know, people who just like to abuse animals. that space of going into allowance, and then you hit it right on the head, is asking a question. What else is possible here? What can we be, what can I be and do different that can change this? Because going into the anger, the frustration isn't going to change it. It's actually just going to lock it in and keep that behavior in existence on the planet. So I'm not sure if that was the whole question, but my thing is, even now, even to this day, I don't watch the news, but if I happen to come across something that internet and it's like this story, and or maybe the news is on in the other room and I hear something, and I might go into a like, oh, I can't believe that, you know, and I just stop. So just don't go, you know, this, I mean, it's now only seconds. It might be a couple of minutes in the beginning before you can go into, okay, what I call allowance. And isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Adorable.
And this is, and I think that's really what the gift of facilitating is for me, because when I have a bunch of beings around me that are in judgment of themselves, and I can sit there and just be and just allow them to be who they are. Sometimes it's the first time anyone's ever let them be that. And other times they don't even know what to do with themselves because they feel so awkward. So
yeah,
that is super powerful for me. And each time I come away from a class with that, I get to go back in the world and be that, because I can forget. Like, I can easily fly off the handle. You know, I can, you know, and then I'll start to beat myself up because I flew off the handle and I had a reaction or response. Is he on the flip side? He's behind the computer now and he's rubbing.
I see little whiskers over the camera.
Yeah, he's rubbing.
That's awesome.
So each time I come away from that, it sends me out into the world as someone who can be more in allowance. And because, you know, you get to, you think, oh, once, you know, I have these really great tools, my life is going to be really awesome. No, all that stuff and all that crap still comes up. It's now you have an awareness to make a choice on how you're going to respond, you know, and that's been the gift for me, that for access, and so many others. The list could go on and on. And cool. I'm over here in the west coast of Florida, in the Fort Myers, Naples area, and I'm building up classes here. So I have upcoming. I have a bars class coming. I have energetic facelift class coming. And because I'm new to this area, I lived in Miami, over where you are, for 14 years. I didn't think that I was going to be staying over here. And now I just made the choice, okay, this is going to be home for a while. So now I'm really starting to build up the local classes over here. And then I like you, I have family in Connecticut. So I try to go up at least twice a year and facilitate classes when I'm up there as well. And I'm happy to go anywhere in the world to facilitate classes.
Yeah. Well, do you have a website, or like, how can people get in touch with you? I'm going to put links, any links that you have, and I'll put them on the bottom.
Definitely share my profile on the Access Consciousness, because it's pretty in depth. I don't see anyone who's gone to the depths that I did with the profile. I actually had a lot of fun with it. So it's KristinaAston.accessconsciousness.com. There's a lot of information there.
Okay, cool.
I also have choosingchoice.com, which is in the process of being built. So it's not as pretty as I would like, but there is information there as well. And you can always contact me at Kristina, which is with a K, at gmail.com.
Awesome. Oh my God. Awesome. I really enjoyed this a lot. I really enjoyed.
And you know something?
Like
when the book comes out, we should do this again.
Okay.
And we could stay focused in that kind of topic.
Okay, definitely. I really like this topic. Like, I'm like, we need to, when we go off air, let's talk a little bit longer, because I'm like, oh, I have some ideas for you, okay? But listen, great, really great. The topic of allowance was highlighted in this interview. It's really awesome. And Kristina, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Like, I always learn something I didn't know before. Yeah, I always see something new, and every time we talk, it's so great. And everybody out there, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for watching. And tomorrow, I'm going to be interviewing, oh my goodness, who am I interviewing tomorrow? Is Wednesday. Tomorrow I'm going to be interviewing George Ira Carroll. And
yay, George!
He is really, yeah, like
he's amazing.
He's really, and that's.
I don't know if George knows how much he's contributed to my world. 2 years ago now, over 2 years ago, he was in my first certified facilitators class. And cool. As a man, he represented the male energy so profoundly and so beautifully and just rocked my world. And I know he rocked, there's about 250 people in that class, and I know he rocked everybody's world. And he's just an amazing guy, like the stuff that he's doing. And I'm actually working with him right now. Yeah. So.
Oh, yeah. Cool. And you know what's unique about him is like he bridges this into the corporate world, and I'm just so curious to hear his take on how he's doing that, because
he does it beautifully. It's awesome. Yeah, I'm going to tune in for that.
Oh, cool. Well,
thank you, Tara, for this conversation. I mean, just this week, it's such a gift.
I see whiskers.
Yeah.
Thank you to Indy. Yes. Thank you, Indy, for grace.
You know, he would be the one to show up. He really loves people. He loves the spotlight. He's the one. Awesome. If I have a party or something, he's right in the middle. He doesn't hide under the bed. He's like, hey, come on, let's go.
That's awesome. All right. You were about to thank me, and then I'll go ahead.
I was thanking you for this conversation, because what this is creating for the future is just phenomenal. Like, how many people are going to find these interviews, and maybe instead of evolving into it 10 or 15 or 20 years, they'll actually look at it far sooner and say, hey, you know what? Maybe there is something here that for me to look at, and I can choose different. I can be different. I can be who I am. I can step into my potency. Ugh.
Yes.
You know. So, thank you.
All right. Yeah, thank you. And again, thank you so much. And everybody out there, thank you so much for tuning in. And I'll see you tomorrow at 2 p.m. Oh, wait, we're going to do this at 12 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. So it is going to be 2 hours earlier. Heads up, everybody, okay? Cool. And yeah, take care, guys. Thank you again, Kristina, so much. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, Tara.
Bye.